Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 13th, 2025 Arcata Fire Protection District Board of Directors stated meeting. Everybody please stand and join with me in the pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. Director Maynard.
Here.
Director Johnson.
Here.
Director Mendoza.
Here.
Director Lavensberger.
Here.
Director Arcata.
Here.
For quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda? I'll move. Approve the agenda. Okay, with the motion and a second, the clerk please call roll.
Director Maynard.
Yes.
Director Johnson.
Yes.
Director Mendoza.
Yes.
Director Lavensberger.
Yes.
And Director Arcata.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on to public comment and association reports. First up is Local 4981.
Good evening, everybody. So we wanted to discuss a little bit, our first negotiation meeting with Chief Emmons and District Council went really well, and was quite a productive meeting. We do have the next session scheduled for May 21st. Looking forward to that. At the end of our meeting that we had on the 28th of April, District Council requested we prepare a presentation for the board for you guys' eyes. You should be seeing that tonight in your closed session. Excuse me. There was a career fair held in McKinleyville High School that two of our members participated in. We provided tours of the engine to interested juniors and seniors and addressed their questions on how to get into the fire service and kind of give them a quick show and tell of what a day-to-day life is like in the fire service. It was a pretty good event. I think we had 25 to 30 interested parties. It was one of those things where there's tables set up and you didn't have to go to everything. So it's based on interest alone. So that was a good thing to be a part of. We were with the Cal Fire Trinidad engine. So it was nice to be with a neighboring agency, but slightly different. Yeah, it was a good event. Our probationary members are nearing their end of their initial quarter. So their first month, we always triple them up just to kind of get them on the ground walking a little bit. And then they're off and running after that first month, provided there's no remediation needed. And they're second on the engine right now. So that first quarter, we really focused in on getting them comfortable as the second body on the engine. Something to highlight is most other agencies in the fire service, you don't train your members till around year 3 to 5 to be an engineer. And we're expecting them to do that just based on our staffing at the end of their first year. So they have a lot to learn. And they are both doing really well.
What are they considered right now?
We hired them as engineers. So they're receiving all the training needed to perform in that level. Last thing is in June 5th, we are participating in the chili cook-off for Pony Express Days. Please come by, say hi. We have a team. We're planning on coming home with both best tasting
Right.
and King Spirit trophies.
You know where they're going. Yeah.
Last 2 years is at Pearson Park, where I find the so I believe it's going to be the same venue. Yeah, please stop by, say hi.
June 5th.
Try some chili. Yeah, it is Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday.
5 to 7.
All right.
Competition. Yeah. Good competition.
And that's all we got for you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely.
Next up is ABFA. They have submitted a report.
They have their report attached. Dave White did call. Roy's still doing granddad duty. And Dave White had another meeting, so nobody could be here, but they just passed on that their report is attached. If there's any questions, please contact them.
Looks like they've been very busy with grant activity. Okay, and with that, it looks like we are ready for closed session.
Mhm.
Before do we need Brian for this, or?
No, not for this one.
Okay, so we will adjourn for closed session. and we have nothing to report. Moving on to the consent calendar. Let's see. We'll get there. Consent calendar items are considered routine and are acted upon by the board with a single action. Members of the audience wish to provide public input may request the board remove the item from the consent calendar. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes. So the consent calendar items are the minutes from April 8th, 2025, the regular meeting, the April 2025 financial report, and adopting resolution 25-328, which is authorizing the transfer of cash from the county treasury to Urban Capital Bank checking account. Is there any board member that would like a specific item removed from the consent calendar?
Yes, item 3, please.
We will take item 3 off of the consent calendar. Anybody else that would like to remove the item? So then, we talk about item 3 now, or do we make the motion on the other 2 items first?
Yeah, I think it's how you want to proceed with it.
Let's do the motion on the other 2 items first, and then talk about item 3. That would be pretty. Okay. Is there a motion on items 1 and 2?
Make a motion that we accept consent calendar items number 1 and item 2.
There's a second. I'll second. Motion a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yeah, Director Maynard,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Mendoza,
Yes.
Director Slater,
Yes.
Director Connor,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, and item number 3, resolution 25-328. Director Mendoza.
So this involves transferring $2,826,356.66 from the county to the Drifters National Bank checking account. Do we normally keep that much money in a checking account?
This is our 4%.
Yeah,
4%.
and then we transfer it to our health trust.
You can't go to one.
We have to put a middle account in before we can put it in our account.
Okay, so what do we normally keep in the checking account for operating, payroll and so forth?
Gosh,
That's
$500,000 or so. Is that right?
Roughly
Yeah.
500,000. Okay. That was my question. So I assumed that we weren't just gonna park $2.5 million in the checking account, but I didn't have the answer. So I wanted to ask that. So I will move, with that information, I will move that we accept consent calendar item 3. Or actually, there may be other questions, I guess, since I opened it up.
Maybe just for public clarity and clearness, maybe next time, put it so that if you're moving it, because I would to move it to, we just,
Yeah, we can do that.
I think that would just be a nice
It'll probably, yeah. you're-
transparency.
We figured that it's just our normal operating business, right? So that's,
Yeah, but it is a weird.
yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Then I'll move that we accept consent calendar item 3.
Second. Motion is second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Director Maynard,
Yes.
Director Johnson, yes, Director Mendoza,
Yes.
Director Slater,
Yes.
Director Connor,
Yes.
motion carried.
Moving on to district business. District business item number 1 is the initiation of annual performance evaluation process for the fire chief.
Sure. I'm not gonna read the whole thing here. Essentially, it's time to do my annual performance review. And it's at my request, the chief makes that request annually around May, so that we can do the process in and through June and complete it by the end of June, ideally on or about June 30th. So at this point, that's what I'm requesting the board direct an ad hoc committee to open the evaluation process. And at a previous meeting, the president and immediate past president were identified as the reviewing committee ad hoc. My recommendation is that you consider the information, take any public comment, discuss it, and direct the ad hoc committee to conduct the annual review process for the fire chief.
Do we have any questions? Any public questions? And back to the board, I believe we need a motion. Somebody
To direct,
to
yes,
direct us to, okay. Somebody like to make a motion, direct myself and Director Lotslager to work on the chief's annual performance review.
So I'll make a motion to create the ad hoc committee of Jason and Eric to the performance fire chief performance review ad hoc committee. Steve has recommended for the process, and then bring it back to the board first. That's unfair. Suitable. Are you ready?
Okay. And is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Clerk, please call roll.
Director Maynard,
Yes.
Director Johnson. Yes. Director Mendoza,
Yes.
Director Lotslager,
Yes.
Director O'Connor.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. District business item number 2 is the 2024-25 annual fire chief evaluation. So this was put on calendar at my request, so I'll take care of the staff report. So back in June of 2024, there's 3 attachments. Attachment number 1 is the Special District Leadership Academy rating sheet, which is attached on the calendar. It's also a handout to each board member. The fire chief, attachment number 2 is the fire chief goals 2024. Again, those are both on the calendar and handouts the board members received. And the June 11th, 2024 staff note. So basically, this staff note from last year, we voted on, the board voted on, set out how the fire chief performance evaluation will be carried out each year. It's set out that there will be an ad hoc committee and the process that it would follow, the approximate dates. The fire chief goals are in there. They were attached at that time as well. And so was the general manager annual performance evaluation. So with the chief's request in item number 1, this is the way that we are planning to carry this out. So I'll just read the staff. Annually, the board of directors conducts an evaluation of the fire chief. The evaluation is an important component of the board's oversight of the district. It aids the board in determining if the district is being managed following the policy directions from the board and clarifies the board's expectations of the fire chief. The board and chief agreed upon the process for the fire chief evaluation in June 2024. And briefly, this is how it will proceed. The fire chief will prepare a report for the board summarizing his accomplishments from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th of 2025, based on the goals and objectives established in June 2024, which you have attached. The fire chief will present that to the board, that report to the board in closed session at the June 10th, 2025 board meeting. Individual board members will also fill out a general manager annual performance evaluation, which is attached. After the closed session, presentation by the fire chief, and questions from the board, that the board will excuse the chief and discuss the report and summarize their individual evaluations into one evaluation. The proposed goals for the time, for the calendar year, July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. A summary of the board consensus will be prepared by the fire chief evaluation subcommittee, which are Director Loudslager and myself. And it will be presented to the chief in closed session, either at a special meeting in late June 2025 or at the July 8, 2025 regular board meeting. The chief and the board will agree upon goals for 2025, 2026, as well as any compensation increases. These will be reported in open session. The recommendation in there, we already took care of in item number 1, so we don't need to take any action. This is just for public information at the time. So we have begun or are beginning the chief's evaluation process and the steps that will follow. Do any board members have any questions for me?
I would just confirm, since the chief is here and you're here, that in our conversation about what we're going to talk about here, that the chief had said he would have a report, a written report to the board members for June 1. And then we'll have the 10 days or whatever it is to the June meeting to look that over, and then he'll come in and present to us, much like when we interviewed you for your job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, the chief and I talked about that.
Right. So the other board members would, unless I brought that up, know to expect a written report on June 1.
Yes.
July 1. Yeah, you're right, June, sorry.
Thank you for that. That is correct, yes. Does anybody have any questions based upon that? Any board members? And members of the public? And since we took care of the recommendation in item number 1, we don't need to make any motions as far as I'm aware of. So moving on to district business item number 3, consideration of funding request for county service area number 4, fire services feasibility study. Chief, sure, have a report.
Recently, Arcata Fire District staff have been invited to participate in discussions with multiple agencies regarding fire services to the county service area number 4. This area comprises the greater areas of West Haven, City of Trinidad, Trinidad Rancheria, Town of Warwick, Big Lagoon Rancheria, and associated unincorporated areas along US Highway 101 to our north. We've been invited as part of the discussion as we have auto-aid agreements with West Haven Volunteer Fire Department and CAL FIRE in the southern area of CSA number 4. The County of Humboldt and LAFCO have been leading the discussions for services. At the April meeting, a request was made to Arcata Fire District staff to consider funding a feasibility study for regionalized services for the CSA number 4 area. The reason for the request was that the services in this area impact our response in the auto and mutual aid agreements. The cost of the feasibility study, the entire cost of the study was estimated to be at $70,000. That was not the request of our portion. All parties at the meeting were requested to consider contributing to the study's funding. The Arcata Fire District does not have any financial responsibility to the area, nor do we receive funding from the area. Staff recommends that the board consider the information, take public comment, and determine whether the district would like to participate in funding a feasibility study.
Do any board members have any questions?
Okay.
Why are we paying anything?
We're not. And that was the request was put to us. My perspective is it's not our issue to resolve. However, they were asking all of the agencies that were neighboring and involved in the discussion if they would like to contribute to the feasibility study. My personal recommendation is it's not our issue to deal with. Therefore, I would not be behind spending our funds for that. But I wanted direction from the board.
Okay, thank you. Well, we like to help our neighbors, but this is the unincorporated area that the county should cover this cost because the county, this is county area. But I think we should help our neighbors if we can, but I don't think that we should be. I don't think that it would be, since we're struggling to pay our own bills, I don't think we could contribute to outside of the district.
And what are they asking? We already have a mutual aid agreement. What more do they want us to do?
So what the feasibility study they're looking for is, essentially, they're looking at the regionalization of services up there and how to fund fire service in that area. You've got CAL FIRE receives money, currently for the response in the area, and they are probably the best equipped for providing services. However, they don't provide service year round. They're only 9 months.
Didn't they change
I
that?
thought they were 12 months now.
Well, but they're still under Amador, if I'm not,
They are.
yeah,
Only under Amador, under special fire season's not declared.
right,
Once fire season's declared, then it's off.
yeah.
I'm
So-
sorry, can you?
So Amador is a 9-month program up there in Trinidad where it's staffed, but right now they've been running fire season year round because of what's been going on. So they have been staffed up there. We as staff, when we participated in these meetings, we feel that CAL FIRE is the best option for that area. That's not our decision to make, obviously. Between the county, who has made it very clear that they are not obligated to provide fire services to that area legally, and that's fine, they can say that, but I think there's a moral obligation to them up there. It's just not our place, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the funding of this feasibility study.
And if they call,
We'll go. We still have Ottawa mutual aid, and we're still gonna go help our neighbors.
Right.
Absolutely. We've gone as far as Oregon responses, but as far as us providing the services up there or funding the study, I don't recommend it.
thank you.
So I would encourage you to continue to participate in meetings if they have them and invite you, so that we stay tuned. It's from the conversation so far, it's not clear whether you're saying CAL FIRE is the most likely candidate to provide services, but it's not clear whether they want to keep their districts and make a JPA with us, or whether they want to annex, have our district annex all the way up to the Del Norte border, or what? I mean, this doesn't tell us that. And I think we should be open to listening to everything. But our constituents, I don't think would be happy with subsidizing service up there. And when I read this, I look at, if we took over certain things up there, if you regionalize it, and if it's a JPA, I don't know, that would mean you'd have to go to JPA meetings. But if it was some sort of annexation or something, then our business manager would have to handle, we'd have to handle all the transactions up there and all the tax collecting and vehicle maintenance and things like that. And I definitely would have questions about whether you guys could handle that, whether you're not, do you have free time now? And then it would seem to me that if we took on that responsibility, we would have to have a real shift in part of our whole demeanor as an entity, because we would be taking on a substantial volunteer component. Perhaps Chief Peabody, and coming from Willows or something, has some experience with both a career that has a substantial peripheral volunteer group. I don't know, but it would seem we'd need a battalion chief or captain or another assistant chief to handle coordinating all the training. And that's, when I read this, you're hearing what went through my mind when I read it. And they're low on resources now, that's why they're proposing it. And we're tight with resources here. So the idea that spreading ourselves thinner would enhance them and enhance us both. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
So the questions that came up to me were, is there any benefit to our constituents?
No.
And it sounds like this would be a financial loss.
Correct.
Anybody else have, or any members of the public have any questions? And back to the board, if there also have any further questions or follow? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we decline to make a financial contribution to the feasibility study, that we instruct the chief to cooperate with them in any investigations they do. And if he feels he needs to come back to us for more direction in that regard, to do that. But to talk to them, to coordinate with them, but that the responsibility of doing the feasibility study belongs elsewhere.
There's a second.
Belongs-
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Meiner,
Yes. We're denying.
Yes, please. Yes, means no.
First to go.
Director Mendoza,
Yes.
Director Lavenslager.
Yes.
Director O'Connor,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, district business item number 4. Consider request for proposal, RFP for consulting services regarding development impact, the nexus study and implementation. Chief, can we have a staff quote, please?
Sure. Recently, I attended the Fire District Association of California Annual Conference in March. I had the opportunity to attend the discussions regarding funding alternatives for fire districts. The discussion provided recommendations by various financial planning consultants and fire district personnel who successfully increased revenues through development impact fees. The fees have allowed fire districts to fund capital improvements such as station and training ground development and other facility improvements. Development impact fees are one-time fees for new construction within the fire district. Components of implementing development impact fees include a nexus study of fire districts seeking the fees, working with the land use agencies, developing the fee schedule, and fee recovery, to name a few. Several firms provided these services. One of the presenters, who is the fire chief of the district, similarly staffed to the Arcata Fire District, specifically it was the Lake County Fire Protection District, indicated that without the assistance of a firm, his agency would not have been able to implement the development impact fees through the county and the city he serves. What staff's recommending is that the board consider the information provided, take public comment, discuss it, and authorize a request for proposal for a contract for development impact fee implementation consulting services. It's a no-cost item to put the RFP out.
Thank you, Chief. Any board members have any questions? Okay.
I do. Have you had any conversations with the city or the county about development fees?
Not with the county, briefly with the city, and they were not totally against it. However, they had concerns about them, at least the individual I was speaking with, and it's kind of the standard statement. The concern is that it would potentially could stifle development. Based on the fire chief I spoke with or heard speak at the thing and the consultant, they're like, yeah, we didn't find that. We haven't found that the development impact fees are that big that they actually stifle development.
Yeah, I've worked with 2 cities that have talked about this, and I've never seen it get off the ground. One of the things has been the lack of, it's a one-time thing. Well, for instance, there is no more buildable property within the city limits of Arcata. I guess so this would be, are we anticipating some major building projects up in McKinleyville? Because what other parts of our district would we even have enough building to where we would, that those fees would be significant? Because these have worked well, that I've heard, and my information may be dated, but when you have like a big Del Webb, housing project go in, then you can get a fire station built, but do we really have that potential? It seems like it's something that's gonna take staff time. And it's gonna be, I'd like to see some more data as to what we do, if this could even be worth it. Sure. I could see it taking your time. Sure. And these companies, they're gonna take it, they're not gonna be cheap.
That's correct, they're not. The draft EIR for the town center up in McKinleyville, I've been reading through that recently. It actually identifies us specifically as, we should consider developing impact fees in that. And it talks about the impact that's going to have on our capacity when they complete the project. That's one project of many new construction projects. I'm also aware of others, just in talking with our fire marshal, that we do have future development in McKinleyville that's coming through. Specifically,
Yeah, that giant, for like disabled, it's gonna be right in that kitty corner off of the. Yeah, because it's not just that little lot that they flattened, it's
Right.
like back into there.
it's,
Quite large.
don't quote me on this, I want to say it's like 2,300 units of
Yeah,
construction.
huge.
Yeah, and then also there is a large development coming off, residential development coming off of Murray between Norton with, I believe it's 80 parcels that they're looking at developing high scale or high dollar homes up in that area, if I'm not mistaken. In the greater Arcata area, not specifically in the city, but in the adjoining areas, I am aware of some projects that are coming to fruition very soon. More of the bottomland that they'll have some development out there.
So what, the RFP, or, yeah, the RFP, what are they doing for us? I mean, what,
So, and maybe staff, legal would be better to answer this, but one of the requirements to be able to implement these is we have to have what's called a nexus study. And it's not something that goes to the voters by any means, however, it's the land use agencies such as the city of Arcadia and county of Humboldt. They would have to implement this, they have to have hearings to support it, but it's something that has to be done procedurally to be able to implement.
so this would be voted on by the Board of Supervisors?
Board of Suits, city council, of whether or not to support it.
Okay,
Yeah, if I understand correctly, it's the city and the county that has to do this. I mean, we can ask them to, but they're the ones that have to do the impact fees.
They would collect the
They,
fees for us.
and give us access to the funds.
Yes.
and if the county went along with it, then it would be just in the unincorporated areas, and Arcata would be its own. To do it within the city of Arcata, you have
They
to
would
have.
have to approve it as well. Yeah.
And our attorney can jump in here if needed, but I'm of the impression that the money has to be spent within a certain length of time, or you have to announce that you haven't spent it and show that you're going to spend it or something like that. There's some constraints.
There's absolutely accountability issue.
Yeah. that, and I think that both the US Supreme Court and, I don't know if California courts, but the US Supreme Court have put some side panels on what you can actually charge to, an individual or a group, so that like new development, won't necessarily have to, cover costs that should have been borne by the whole community, for example.
It says a rational basis for imposing fees, so.
Yeah.
I guess what is a rational basis? Are there any limitations on what you use the funds for? Like
It's capital.
being just to pay for stations, engines?
Yeah.
It says more
Just-
personnel
it's capital.
needed for growing communities.
It's like facilities,
Okay.
training, it's not for staff or anything like that. But what that also allows you to do is use your funds elsewhere that you have in your coffers.
Are you recommending that we do this?
Yes.
Just put out the RFP.
Put out the RFP, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think it's a good idea because it potentially could be another income source for us and it's just putting up the RFP. We don't have to commit to it right now.
That's why it's no cost item currently. When it comes back, if we have any, RFPs, then you can decide whether it's too much money or you don't want to do it or what our course of action is at that point.
And does this include, like, if somebody tears down an old house and builds a new one, you get for that also, or is it just new construction on vacant land?
My understanding is like any new construction that comes in, so if somebody tears something down and you're building something new on, it, I believe it would have a new fee.
So density projects, anything like that.
ADUs, yeah.
Yeah.
So these fees are substantial in certain locations. I mean, in places like the Bay Area, they're paying, $30,000 to $60,000 for an apartment unit in impact fees.
When I spoke with the chief from Lake County Fire Protection, he was on the verge of closing the station if he had not received these, because it was, one, he couldn't do the repairs on it, he was having to use his money for repairs of the station, and this helped him cover that cost, which then allowed him to put his funds elsewhere.
So these fees, let's just say that we do impact fees. We have a brand new station and most of the fees are gonna come from McKinleyville. We have a brand new station in McKinleyville. Can those fees be used to remodel Mad River, for instance? Or do they have to be in the area?
That would be a question I would have. I don't want to assume on that, but that would be one of the questions I'd want to find out.
There's something in the back of my mind that says it has to be within that, but my information is dated, but.
I don't know the answer.
So we'd have to say, we have to have something to spend the money on. And there's really no capital in the McKinleyville area, correct? Is there something that we would?
The future capital, or as far as on our stuff, our stations, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, no, it's,
I mean, Mad River, obviously, but the other two stations were capitaled out.
yeah, I think I could make an argument that Mad River also supports McKinleyville pretty significantly when we go to incidents out there. And
Use it for a training.
training ground for the McKinleyville's crews to come down. It's centrally located.
Well, it sounds like a lot of work, and I can anticipate that you're not gonna get a lot of cooperation from the city or the county, but you can certainly listen to what people have to offer.
Sure. And in my opinion, we're limited on other alternatives, and this is an opportunity. What the answer will be, but it's an opportunity.
So the only other comment that I have is Arcata believes that they're gonna have 500 new units in the next 20 years in the Gateway area. That, whether it comes to fruition or not, but, so there is significant, so essentially, the dorms up there are 240 units, 241 units. So essentially, we're looking at, if that is 2 towers, we're looking at 4 of those down here. The city wants us to plan for having services for those, expecting them to have a development impact fee. It's not reasonable. They may say no, they may not be willing to cooperate, but
Well, the other thing we have to think about too is, how could this affect RDF and Measure F or benefit assessment? That benefit assessment perhaps would, I just gotta think that through. We don't want to, misinformation, and I want to talk about that a little bit later, but we have a misinformation that's just continues, about it's hard for people to understand how this fire district is funded. And it's been really hard since I've been here to get our message out as to how we are funded. Just gotta be careful that we don't have a distraction from something that can distract real quick, and maybe we have to redo the assessment. Because those are the low hanging fruit, I guess, compared to impact fee and right. That's high fruit. But certainly listen.
And I don't disagree with you on that at all. That's actually been part of my angst about the building plans. Putting forth development, city plan, a general plan, and the county has university has plans. Now coming to us with barrels of money for impacts, and we're faced with trying to raise money for the resources we need to service them, but at the same time, I think to free up our assessments. Yeah. Public relations challenge.
I think the development fee would be a good. So like, the property taxes, Tennessee, we will get that collection later, right? After, so. In arrears, but the development fee up front. So I think that's a way to capitalize and to show that we are doing everything we can in order to not have to pass along those fees to the taxpayer. I mean, circular probably does trickle down, but ultimately it would be the developer that's paying for the single homeowner that's building new construction. That would be there to cover an individual doing that. And as far as the college goes, there are instances where we could exempt them, but I don't see how we will.
So they would have to pay.
For their
We
new,
could get
for
the
their
money.
new, for their new buildings, it's, I mean, that might be more complicated than that, but it says institutional, civic facilities are sometimes exempt or reduced, but it doesn't say that they're not, it doesn't say always.
State of California has its supremacy clause.
Very nice. Is what happens.
Any other comments from the board program? Public, have any comments?
Yeah, after being heavily involved in the last 3 round campaigns like funding measures, one of the common feedbacks that we have received from our voters is kind of a question of, are you doing everything that you can before asking to vote? So I think this may be one of those opportunities available for us to say, yes, we are.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize a request for proposal for a contract for development impact fee implementation consulting services.
Second.
Motion is second, will the clerk please call roll?
Yeah, Director Mayor,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Mendoza,
Yes.
Director Lavender,
Yes,
Director O'Connor,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, moving on to district business item number 5. Consider a contract award for engineering services to update the 2006 benefit assessment. Chief, how was that for us?
So at the February 2025 directors meeting, staff was directed to seek a request for a proposal for engineering services to consider updating the Arcata Fire District's 2006 benefit assessment. The district received only one proposal for engineering services by the deadline. The proposer, Bartle Wells Associates, met the criteria for the RFP and proposed a time and material contract with a not to exceed price of $44,500. Staff believes the proposed rates are reasonable. Suppose the board chooses to award the contract to Bartle Wells Associates. In that case, the engineer will prepare a detailed study of our fire suppression costs and capital needs and make recommendations as to the appropriate level of benefit assessment that the board may decide to implement at its discretion once the report is received and reviewed. District council is present to answer any questions regarding the process. Staff's recommendation is that the board consider the information provided, take public comment, discuss and authorize the fire chief to execute a contract for engineering services with Bartle Wells Associates not to exceed $44,500.
Thank you, Chief. Any board members have any questions or comments? Well, I have some questions I just kind of like to get on the record for the public. So just, I'm going to ask them even though I already know the answers. Have we been charging the same benefit assessment rates since 2006?
Yes.
Okay. So almost 20 years later, have salaries increased?
Sure, yes.
Fuel prices that we pay increased?
Yes.
Okay. How about cost of equipment, new equipment?
Absolutely.
How about cost of repairing equipment?
Yes.
Would increasing the benefit assessment help us to serve our community
Sir,
by recruiting and retaining personnel?
it would contribute in many ways to our coffers.
Does that include, so that includes personnel, maintaining and updating equipment, all that stuff, maintaining facilities?
Yes.
That's all I have. Any other board members have any questions?
So I have a couple questions. One is how and why was the decision made to have both the benefit assessment and the special tax? Is there any, so we have two additional elements beyond our ad valorem. We have the benefit assessment, and then we have the Measure F special tax. And I'm just wondering, why do we not just have, why didn't we just raise the benefit assessment in 2020 and have one assessment? Why is there two of them? What was the rationale?
Well, I wasn't here then. However, my understanding is it's two separate mechanisms because the benefit assessment is specific to the fire benefit versus the special tax was an all encompassing. But I would defer to probably the local as well as board members that were here at that time. That's my understanding.
Well, and just keep in mind, the benefit assessment can only fund fire suppression. It can't fund medical, and certain other costs. And so when you look at doing a benefit assessment, the engineer is going to take stock of all of our expenses. And then they're going to segment things that can't be paid for with the benefit assessment. And so there's a funding shortfall there. And I don't know the reason for doing the special tax, but part of the ballot language was to help fund the medical aid, which is a large portion of our calls and responses and a large portion of our expense. And again, the medical can't be funded by the special assessment.
Okay, that helps a lot. So the other, an observation I've made, part of, this isn't a question about doing this. It's more just giving me information so that I understand better. How do we tell them what we want and what they need to consider in this benefit assessment proposal? Because I guess one of the things I've observed and have questions about and would like changed if it's legally possible and it's politically feasible, is we have our units cap out, our benefit units cap out at 10 multifamily units. So $500 thereabouts or something like that. We have a non-trivial number of apartment complexes that have way more units than that. And so I've been like, you know, how do we lift that cap? And I believe, I have to be careful, but I believe that in the one apartment complex, the terrace complex, I think there's 135 units in there. And what I have to be careful with is I believe that was 3 parcels that actually got combined into 1 parcel. And so, I think that we need thorough information, but to have our benefit assessment be based on, without a cap on units. And I even think that we need to look at and consider and think about square footage. So for example, if you have a 4-plex that's 800 square feet, 2-bedroom apartments, so you have 3,200 square feet, that falls under the way we have it now. That's in that 2 to 4 unit fee schedule. If you have built an apartment building that's 3,200 square feet that has 8 400 square foot 1-bedroom apartments, they pay way more. It's the same number of bedrooms. I realize there's probably a bit more hazard with 8 kitchens versus 4 kitchens. But nonetheless, you're looking at the same square footage. And so how things get configured, you'd have the same number of people in 2 of them. And I think we have to be cognizant of that and ask for help and direct things so that the benefits are properly allocated to the different types of structures that we're dealing with. The other thing that I have questions about and thought about is how benefit assessment allocations will change with the height of buildings. And I would encourage and like to see us now at this point in time, if it's legal, if it's possible, if we can get it passed, put appropriately high levels of benefit on either 3 to 7 or 3 and above or 4 and above, so that we're capturing, if we believe that we can have staffing of 3 people on an engine with 3 engines to deal with our 37,000 people in, 2-story apartments that for the most part, we have to deal with. And if we have to go to 4 engines with 4 people on each of them to handle 4 to 8, 7-story buildings, then I think that those structures need to pay for that additional cost. And this would be the time before we have a whole lot of them that can vote no. And if there's going to be fees associated with it, the developers need to see those fees so that they know what the fee structure's got to be for fire service. So dealing with that now up front so the community sees it, I think would be important.
Is that all something that, because he brought some lot of good points, is that stuff that they can put in?
Yeah, so with the benefit assessment, you're part of once we engage Barlow Wells, which is the entity that I hope would propose, because they do fire districts up and down the state. Part of it is meetings with the board to kind of scope out what the engagement's going to be. What the options are in terms of the benefit assessment, what the parcel use categories should be. Because it's not just, looking at what the annual assessment is for each parcel use category that exists. It's have the parcel use categories within the district change to where different types of parcel use categories should be included. And so there's going to be that in terms of scoping out what this is going to look like. Moving to a square footage basis is something that I think would be a great thing to explore with them to see if, what other districts have done it. How does it work? What are examples of it? So, it's a little bit more of an art than a science with the benefit assessment. Ultimately, the question is going to be, is the assessment proportional to the cost to that particular parcel to provide the service? That's, ambiguous, in terms of how, you can't measure that, with any type of formula, but there is significant case law on benefit assessments, and the engineers are the ones that study those and can design a benefit assessment that's defensible. Of course, I'll be looking at it as well, in terms of their work product as we move towards the engineer's report, to be presented to your board. But there'll be some scoping opportunities for you guys to provide input, and hear directly from the engineers as to what's possible, what's practical, and what's common.
The challenge is that the parcel owners vote for it, not the general public. This is the parcel owners that would vote yea or nay. Majority parcel. One of the concerns, interesting things that is that this is the only, to my knowledge, the only revenues we get from Cal Poly Humboldt is from benefit assessment. And I think that that entire university is something like 3 parcels or something, or it's not a bunch of parcels. And currently, I think, I'm going from, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going from that distant memory, but I think they pay maybe something like $20,000 a year, based on huge parcels. So that's one thing that I'd be interested in is that, why do we, that just seems unfair to our constituents if you're just going by parcel, and obviously we can stack the calls up there. So if the engineers could, if that's something that you think that is even possible to look at, I think that would be well worth it. But they could vote no. I guess the more parcels that they get, the more votes they could vote no. So,
And it's weighted voting, right? So, the more you're assessed, the more your vote counts.
so it's a balancing act. So far, they've been pretty good at throwing countermeasures for revenues to pay their bills, but I think we got to do this. Actually, this goes back to before the parcel, the Measure F, because this was the first extra vote revenue, I believe, that the district did, and it went back into the 80s, doesn't it, when it started? I think so. So that's how they started, and it wasn't until what was it, 2020 that we added the Measure F, something like that.
Mhm.
So that's relatively new. But I think we really have to stay on message though, and really make sure people understand that this hasn't changed since the 80s, and we got to keep up with costs. I think that Jason brought up was we got to keep doing that. Because people don't understand that. And I think we may have to go have some one-on-ones with some of the big property owners so that they will understand. We did that before. I remember.
Yeah. I guess I would concur with that. I would hope that this would come in, at or below the rate of inflation from 2006, so that the argument for the homeowners and the people who own double wide mobile homes and things like that, it would simply be a COLA for us. And then whether it's one-on-one, however we do it, we need to tell the property owners that if they want a fire service, to be able to show up at their apartments with the right number of force, that they need to pick up more of the cost. And I think that if we expanded the base and did a COLA, I think there's a good chance that we could put 3 people on a number of the engines. But that I could be
I don't think we're gonna get enough money from the benefit assessment to do that, do you?
If we, if we just did a COLA, we would get something like $800,000. If we took our current benefit assessment and increased it, the receipts we get, the revenue we get from the current benefit assessment, if we increase that with the COLA from 2006 to now, we would get somewhere around $800,000, I believe. It's not trivial at all. And so I think doing a COLA and I think that's defensible, whether they'll buy it or not. We need some help with that. I'm not sure who the best messenger is.
The other unfortunate part is that, given that California's been on fire, it I guess it helps people understand that you need to have fire service, but on the other hand, insurance companies are moving out of California. And that's putting pressure, and their rates are going up, and that's putting pressure on these property owners too. So this is a really complex issue that's gonna require a lot of public finesse and a lot of public information.
Any other board members have questions or comments? Anybody from the public? Attorney Potts, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just say, procedurally, this is step one. Eventually we'll get to a resolution approving an engineer's report. And then that starts really the Prop 218 process where we'll mail out ballots. And it is a mail-in procedure. We can use the county elections office to run that portion of the election for us, or AP. Which I recommend, because they tabulate the votes, mail them out. But you're right, it's a lot of PR between now and then that needs to be done, educating and explaining our costs. They have not increased for quite some time.
It's a little easier for PR in that we have a list of the people that we need to talk to, whereas it's not just people in front of us, we have a list, and we know who we need to talk to, we need to reach out to them. I can make if you want to move on, I can make a motion.
Everybody's ready? Yeah.
I move that we authorize the fire chief to execute a contract for engineering services with Bartle Wells and Associates not to exceed $44,500.
Yeah. Second. With motion and second, would you clerk please call roll?
Director Maynard,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Mendoza.
Yes.
Director Lavensberger,
Yes.
and Director O'Connor.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Moving on to item number 6. Approval of master service agreement with Lexipol for policy development and updating services. And the chair, can the chief give us
The chirp.
can the chief give us a staff report, please?
Sure. So again, as I mentioned before, I attended the Fire District Association California Conference. Had the opportunity to attend training sessions provided by FARA, which is our liability insurance carrier for the district. The carrier provided a wealth of information to protect and prevent liability for the district. One of the strongest recommendations was using a vetted policy development company. Based upon the recommendations of a carrier, we reached out to Lexipol, a company that provides constitutionally sound policies that comply with federal and state laws and provides timely policy updates as laws and best practices change. Lexipol policies are built on best practices, but they are flexible enough for our agency to customize the content for our community's needs easily. Previously, we contracted with Lexipol back in the middle 2010s for policy services and training. However, due to the budget constraints prior to the passing of Measure F, the program was dropped. If approved to move forward with Lexipol services, the implementation period would take a few months. The administration team and Local 4981 will work together to ensure the current policies are converted and revised to meet all state and federal laws. Staff recommends that the board review the proposal, take public comment, discuss and approve the master services agreement with Lexipol not to exceed 28,000. The actual amount was just under 28,000. The implementation of the contract will be included in the fiscal year 25-26 budget. If we were to do it now, it actually, we would be able to get a little bit of a discount on it.
Thank you, Chief. Any board members have any questions? So I have a question based upon what we discussed earlier. Were you able to find out an answer to the question regarding after the initial charge, what it would be per year? Would it be that 11,000 number or would it be that 1,000 number?
Right, it was, so the middle number that was in the sheet, let me get to the sheet. So the 14,060, let me back up. The three boxes you see there currently would be the total amount for the implementation, the services and everything to start out. After the initial year, that middle box would disappear and we would only be charged the 11,419 plus the 1953 annually.
So it's both those.
Both of those, yes.
And this company is recommended by our liability insurance carrier.
Highly. They're well-known, at least nationally. I know that Gordon Graham, which many of us are familiar with, founded the company, and
With Bruce Pratt.
yes. Yeah, so they're highly recommended.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them and their policies. Anybody else?
When's the last time our policies were updated?
Well, we've actually been working as a policy review committee, but it's a slow, tedious process when it's a bunch of firefighters and admin staff trying to get together in a room and review the policies or implement new ones. But it was an ongoing process and just not making, we're not attorneys and we're not making a lot of headway. It's probably the best way to put it.
Is it possible to have this done and then not do the yearly update? And do it again in 5 years?
Well,
The policy has to be in place every year.
yeah. And the problem is with doing it that way, if we were to drop out of the service, then we might not be getting the legal updates that would be a part of it.
The power behind, I've worked with Lexipol for years, and the power behind it is when you get sued, you get compared with your other agencies, so the power behind it is the standardized policies, is that you're not violating the policy because you're doing the same thing that all the other agencies are doing. If you do something different, then the plaintiff's attorneys have something to sue you for. So that's the power behind something like Lexipol is as long as you stay within your policy, you're in pretty dry ground. If you go out and you start doing wonky things outside of your policy, then that's when you're going to get sued. And on top of that, chiefs get sued, punitive damages, which insurance companies don't pay. So that chiefs get a little concerned about that because, these guys over here carrying the deed to his house in their back pockets. For,
No pressure.
when it comes to potential punitive damages. So I don't think a public agency these days can afford to operate without a standardized policy in place personally.
One of the other additional things about this program through Lexipol that I like, it provides a training platform for it as well. So not only do they update it, they send out the updates to the policy, but they have a platform that goes to every employee and you have to log in. And it's not just, okay, I opened it and now I'm done. You have to read it because there's testing or quizzing associated with it to verify that everybody's actually paying attention.
Was there a line item in the budget allocated for this lovely cost?
Not this year, it'd be for next year.
What about the other one? Sorry, I know we did that one. The fair ask.
The previous one, it was gonna be for next year as well. These are items we were looking at
Next year.
after the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
July 1st, okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public?
Director Mayor, the last time the policy book was fully refreshed, was in 2014, 2015, when we initially bought into Lexipol. And we went through, budgetary shortfalls and opted out of the annual updates.
Thank you.
Back to the board, any other questions or comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the master service agreement with Lexipol not to exceed $28,000. Implementation of the contract will be included in the fiscal year 25-26 budget.
For a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Please call roll.
Yeah. Director Maynard,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Mendoza,
Yes.
Director Lavensberger,
Yes.
Director Arcata,
Yes.
motion carries.
I will say with that, one thing we found helpful was the daily training goal.
Moving on to number 7. Where to start? There. The government relations update and discussion. We have a staff report, please.
Sure. So at the February Board of Directors meeting, the board requested to place a government relations item on future agendas to allow for discussion of ongoing items that impact the Arcata Fire District, such as community relationships with other government entities and future planning topics. Staff recommends that the board consider the information provided, take public comment, discuss ongoing topics. No action needed as part of this, but it's an opportunity to discuss items.
Thank you, Chief. Any board members have any comments or questions about anything in this?
I do,
Go ahead.
but mine might take a little bit, so if anybody has something,
Go ahead.
So I need to report to the board that I've had a conversation with the news media. And I forwarded it to staff, but due to the Brown Act, I wasn't able to report to you folks. So there was an article in the Times Standard. I'm going to pass this out to you. This is a Times Standard article. And on to tweet from the clerk, and if you can get around to get local. So
Yeah.
So this was an article on the Saturday, April 12th, 2025 Times Standard did a great article on the new 6- and 7-story residence halls at Cal Poly Humboldt. It was a great, very nice article. I was quoted in the article, so I felt, and I believed it was out of context. So I wrote to the author, to the reporter, Sage Alexander, and expressed my concerns, and Sage responded back. But my biggest concern is well, what it talks about. I was quoted when the day that we had the fire at a moderate high-rise building in the downtown. I was heading. I could hear the call coming through, and I'm heading to the board meeting, and I'm driving by the 7-story dormitories at the same time, and I'm picturing 1,000 kids in there, and how's a small group of firefighters with only 2 or 3 engines going to handle a mass casualty incident in a 7-story building? Board member Randy Mendoza asked at the January district meeting, and I said, it just doesn't make sense. So the reporter kind of countered my statement and said a fact sheet from the tour of the new dormitory building indicates that the buildings meet or exceed all California fire code safety benchmarks, has fire sprinklers, smoke detectors, and has been reviewed by the state fire marshal, plus it's made of type 1A precast concrete. So I felt that was out of context. So what I did is I'm going to read what I wrote just for the folks at home. I said, Alexander, dear Sage, a few comments about your article in today's edition, Cal Poly Humboldt new housing to open in the fall. And again, this was April 12, 2025. You accurately quoted me about concerns I expressed during the recent Arcata Fire District Board of Directors meeting. Following my quote, you outlined a fact sheet from the California State University system about how the 6- and 7-story residence halls that will house 964 students meet and exceed all of California fire code benchmarks. I need to clarify the concerns I expressed that you quoted had nothing to do with building codes or fire codes. I certainly agree that concrete buildings do meet or exceed current code standards. We all know that under no circumstances concrete buildings don't burn. However, the contents of dorm rooms will burn. Fire service professionals have told me in a single dorm room could rapidly create a lot of highly toxic, potentially deadly smoke, and the need of immediate evacuation of the entire building. This is my concern. How will our tiny, underfunded, understaffed fire district with only 6 firefighters on duty be able to safely fight a dorm fire and evacuate hundreds of students at the same time? The Arcata Fire District covers 5 communities spread over 62 square miles. On average, 30% of our calls for service overlap with other calls. Thus, having 6 firefighters available to respond to a major incident would be under the best of circumstances. The Arcata Fire District is mainly funded by property taxes. The university, being a state agency, does not pay property taxes. If the California State University system could find a way to pay its fair share of the services it receives from the fire district, there would be more firefighters and equipment resources like a ladder truck, and I would not be expressing the concerns in public meetings that your article quoted. I also need to clarify that the comments that I'm expressing are my own. I've not been authorized by the fire district board of directors to make comments. I'm not representing the fire district board of directors on this particular issue. I love living in the university community, and I greatly appreciate what Cal Poly Humboldt brings to our community. In this case, I'm just doing my job, which is to represent the citizens of our community who are paying property taxes so that we can have a fire district. For background and the full context of concerns, I detailed the letter the fire district sent to Cal Poly Humboldt on December 2nd, 2024, as regards Randy Mendoza. So that attachment is already attached to this business item. So thank you, Chief, for including that in there. So just a quick thing here. What I put out is I printed some copies of my email. And so Ruth Schneider, the editor, answered first that Sage and I will address these concerns when we're both in the office on Tuesday. And then, so I kind of put the numbers in the context of the messages. So the next one, I answered and I said, please, no, I appreciate Sage's article. I want to clarify what seems to be a common misconception about public safety concerns I and my fellow board members have been attempting to convey to CPH and the CSU leadership. And then Sage did answer on April 15th. Sage said, gotcha, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. My apologies for missing these important pieces. Writing the story was like, I need to include something about these concerns that keep coming up. And quick summary, but I feel like I missed key parts of your thoughts and issues last week. We're updating the story with clarifications on your thoughts from this email. Thank you for reaching out about this and expanding on your thoughts. want to keep reporting on this as the dorms get closer to completion stage. So the reason I brought this in is first of all, I'm talking to the news media and I'm not authorized by the board. I'm representing myself, but I felt that I needed to explain to my fellow board members what I did and then in the context. And the other thing is just to bring up the concern that we continue, since I've been on the board, we really have a message problem. You know, if after all the meetings that we've attended, and I even attended, I know that Eric and I attended a meeting with the person that was leading that made the statement at Cal Poly Humboldt that was leading the tour. Eric and I met with him, with our previous chief. I just don't feel like we're getting through, you know, how, you know, concrete buildings don't burn, so, you know, it meets the code, and I don't think it's on purpose, but what we're getting is that if the building inspector said that everything passes the code, then what's the point? You know, the point is that we don't have the resources to handle 6- and 7-story high-rise buildings. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the training, and the entity being the state of California that is putting that in our community isn't paying for it. And our constituents are. So I think we just have to continue to try to work with Cal Poly Humboldt and the state of California to try to find ways that they can pay their fair share, because I feel like we're just running into a reef here. So that's what I wanted to say.
I don't know how to penetrate that. Because that's, you know, when the city council had their conversations, when they had their study sessions, when I wrote letters, and they had their meetings, they all looked at each other and said, the fire marshal signed up on these buildings. What in the world are they, you know, what is that board member harping about? What is the issue? And because these buildings have sprinkler systems and alarms, so what's the deal? I don't know how we break through that one. I think that with regard to the campus, I don't want to see a little bit of money from them. I want to see a lot of money. And I think that's going to have to involve after the board makes some decisions and after we sat down with the campus and perhaps the conversation with AP Triton, maybe we can ask them questions and they'll answer questions. We'll maybe penetrate this for the university and for the city. I don't know. But one observation, not in this article, but in a very similar article that was in Lost Coast Outpost, Mike Fisher indicated that the university contributed $17 million to the city of Arcata for roundabouts and, you know, redoing the road at the Sunset Overpass.
Arcata Station, Arcata Ambulance, Code 3 Medical, 2351, Westwood Court,
Fully prepared to
West
have
Alliance Road, Apartment S, like Frank 2.
to
Female, altered difficulty breathing, 2028.
to ask the state to be the bank for, you know, and they get reimbursed with infrastructure development from the county and from the city as other things get built. And I'm not thinking in terms of 1 or 2 million. I'm thinking in terms of more like 20 or 25 million for the things we need. I mean, I think we need to go big, not small. I don't think we need to ask for things we don't need, but we need to be honest with them. And for me, part of it is with the standard of coverage and the community risk assessment is getting them to commit, make some sort of public commitment about whether whether they want public safety standards for their buildings, not in terms of construction, but in terms of being able to service it. And as far as annual increments, annual costs, whether the campus is gonna move, whether the chancellor's office is gonna move, I don't know. But I think it's talking to our state legislatures and, we're in a situation here where, the campus is one of our constituents. And it's a weird setup because the campus does not get free water from the city of Arcata or from Humboldt Bay Municipal Water. They pay for their water. They pay PG&E for the electricity that they use. And yet they seem just not to be able to grasp that they've asked the district to service them and that they need to listen to us when we tell them what it costs, what it needs in terms of equipment and manpower and facilities to service them, and that they have to pay for it, if that's what they need. And, that may have to go through the state legislature. Our representatives and discussions with them.
Any other board members have any comments? So my only comment is about the.
Three medical, 351 Westwood Court Apartment.
In response to the
And then number
letter we sent
2
dated March
for
20th,
Arcata Station.
and I was hoping for something more from them. Maybe some.
Responding 2031.
Get together and talk with us and try and work out something to better serve their community and their students. So I'm just feeling a little bit dismayed about the response letter that they sent us. Anybody else? Any members of the public have anything they'd like to add?
I would just say, and losing my voice, but I would say that, it kind of keeps going back to the comments of the construction of the buildings and they can't burn. I think anyone who's been in the fire service long enough knows that I've had fires at the laundry facility at the jail. That's a concrete building. I've had fires at the hospital with oxygen. That's a highly fire resistant building. Silvercrest in Eureka just had a fire where 2 firefighters pulled a victim out. Last I heard that she was in critical condition. Hopefully she is not passed. She passed away. That is a concrete building, sprinklered. I've had many fires, tons of fire prevention features with self-closing doors, and fires will still take place. In newer construction, Silver is a little bit older, but that's where the toxic smokes, the heat release of the plastics that are made of all our furniture now, are more likely to be in that building than what we see typically at Silvercrest. And that's with an agency with 15 to 18 people, 2 duty officers, and still calling in all of the same mutual aid resources, auto aid resources that we would need. So they're getting that right out the gate. And so it will happen. And it's not a doomsday fear tactic. We have done this job long enough to know that a fire will take place in one of those dorms. The age of the people who will be living in those units, fires will occur. You're told not to use heat plates, they still use heat plates. So we know on our side that it will happen. And we're just hoping to stop an impact of it being anything fatal.
I totally agree with you, especially the part you brought up about, heat plates. You can have all sorts of rules. Anybody's been around the university, at one point I worked down south on a university campus. And, they had all sorts of rules, no playing candles, no heat plates like that. students took those
Absolutely.
on a weekly, if not daily basis. Cal Poly Humboldt can put as many rules they want to on these students. The students can break the rules. So
They're gonna have.
I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
We just have to keep, the only way I know to do is to just keep saying it over and over again. You know, I mean, don't give up. We have to keep saying it, you know. I find myself when I'm in groups, I repeat it because we gotta get the message out. We've been doing it. None of us have done a good job yet. I mean, we're trying to find our way, and myself included. I don't know, but we're not getting the message out to the average. And here we're talking about re-up and measure F. We're talking about, you know, the benefit assessment, and I just feel like I just want to scream sometimes because it's like I just feel like we're hitting a roof. You know, we can't get the information out that people need to know because there's so much disinformation out there. And I don't want to say that it's on purpose. I just don't think people understand. And I think that they feel like they have more important things to deal with than what we're trying to say. And of course, you know, a lot of times people, they don't. I see what happened, for instance, and down in the fire chief in Los Angeles, fire chief lost her job because, oh gee, they, after let too many people off, didn't have enough firefighters, so, I mean, now they're pointing the finger at the fire chief in Los Angeles about why didn't you do this? Why weren't you prepared? And I feel like we're doing the best we can to be prepared and to point out to the public that there is a need for public safety here that we just got to keep doing it. Maybe a committee or something. I don't want another committee, but we just got to. I think that what Jason has expressed, we're not reaching the right people at Cal Poly Humboldt. Obviously, I know when Eric and I went up there, we were told we didn't even access the president, and when we were on that committee, and we were told that by the state senator that we would be meeting with the president, and the president didn't show to the meeting that we had. And to my knowledge, none of us have even talked to the president. We sent a letter to the chancellor, and the associate vice president responded to the letter that we sent to the chancellor of the California State University system. So, I mean, it's nothing against the associate vice president. He's just doing his job, but we're not accessing the people, the decision makers. So maybe we can think of future agenda items or something that just to work on this. We've got a lot of work to do in this area, in my opinion.
So a question, in the email exchanges, they said they were going to follow up. Have they followed up?
They're not yet, but I mean, this Sage didn't say when it would be followed up, but I'm confident that they will.
Yeah, I mean, this would actually be a good piece for whether it's the North Coast Journal or Times Standard or Arcata, Mad River Union, to have a good investigative piece that identifies the difference between the suppression staff needed to provide public safety in these buildings versus the job of the fire marshal and construction techniques and construction codes. I don't know how to get them to do it, but
My email was also sent to Bruce Schneider, the editor, and John Richmond, the publisher. So they're aware of this. And I appreciated the Times Standard's response. I'm confident that they'll be doing an article, but we need more than just that. We have more work to do. I appreciate the Times Standard, but we need to get farther out than that.
If I may, earlier on another topic, we received a PRA request for inspection records from an investigative journalist that has a tendency to, do stories on,
That is,
no, this guy's national.
Oh.
And, City of Arcata received the same one. It's about whether or not the mandated inspections are being done at apartments and such. He's pretty big, but I would be willing to try to reach out to him with the topic, top poly issue, our issue, and see where.
Can't hurt.
Yeah, I'd like to bring up something that Chief and I have talked about before, and Chief, if you can remind me, because I don't remember the exact details. We talked about that we depend on allied agencies for ladder trucks.
Uh-huh.
And memory serves me that you and I talked about this before. There was a time when we requested a ladder truck and Eureka was busy and so Fortuna.
Sorrel Place, when we had the fire there, they wanted to go and requested Fortuna, and by the time, I don't remember if they didn't staff it, or by the time they got it staffed, we had fortunately taken care of it. I think that was the one you were
that was the
referring to.
exact
So
call.
we can always rely on our allied agencies. They may be busy, they may have things going on, they may have staffing issues of their own, but we can't
Right.
rely on them to bring a ladder truck.
I'm listening, and that's exactly the case, Humboldt Bay's ladder truck was unavailable, and they were calling Fortuna. And I think that, and that's it takes 40 minutes to come from Fortuna in a car. I can imagine a ladder truck volunteers that would get here an hour and a half.
Well, I think the time's one too. It's not fire that kills people, it's the smoke that, I mean, time and time again, it's smoke inhalation that gets people, so, and it doesn't take much. I mean,
One that the idea of a fire truck, I mean, you think about larger cities and taller buildings than what we have, right? That ladder's only gonna go so high. And they have buildings that are way taller than 110 foot ladders that can do. So even like Sorrel Place, I mean, we do have advantage that there is a standpipe system throughout that whole building. So the capabilities of an engine company are great. Well, what we need is people. That's really what, clear floors. And I look at these new ones and once we get a chance to go train on them, I know our fire chief likes to go, into ICS terms, but likes to go division. I could very easily be assigned to, Division 6 with me and my one guy. Clear the entire floor that you guys see how big they are. And I could have 100 students I'm trying to get off of Division 6. So that's with
What's Division 6?
So ICS terms for our command structure would be, as we go up on the floors, we would label 1, 2, 3, 4, the floor level. But it would basically, from his standpoint as a commander, can give me that goal objective that I would be called Division 6. I would basically be running my portion of the fire. So when I get up on Division 6, I'm still having my tactical priorities of rescue, exposure, confinement, extinguishment, and overhaul. So I'm trying to do that with 2 people, and if I can't, then I'm quickly making the request to give me more. But when we only have 6, that request gets filled pretty fast, because we need to have people on Division 5 and Division 4, and so that's where we're gonna run up against the quickest, is just a lack of first responders in a timely manner, trying to clear that building out.
It's been some years ago, but my brother was the head RA at California State University, Northridge, and they had a fire, and an entire floor was, it was concrete, but the fire, the smoke just ruined it. It became uninhabitable, an entire floor of the dormitory, started in a single room. So I know it happens.
So somebody that has roughly 20 years of experience in this agency, I don't see this problem going away with new building construction in terms of people relying on the argument of fire codes and building codes. However, all those fire prevention features get rendered useless when the human occupants inside, because you can never outcode the human element in there. When they don't know what they're used for, and they chalk open a self-closing door that's meant to shut and keep smoke in a corridor and keep a safe space for people to escape to, when those things get chalked open, it doesn't matter if it was put in code or not.
Well, I hope there's people out in the news media that listen to this discussion tonight.
maybe Sage will be listening or watching this meeting. And here are comments, the comments by Marcus and by Tony, which are a lot better than my knowledge. You guys are way more knowledgeable about this stuff.
Well, I just want to say, when Eric and I talked to the university, we were accused of airing dirty laundry, is what it was, the term was. So that we were trying to do some sinister thing to stop the building, and it's not the case. You know, we support the university. We love living in a university community, but we're just not getting to the right people. You know, we're not airing dirty laundry. We're just really worried that we do not have the personnel and the equipment and the trainings that handle these tall buildings. And we need the state to step in and help us work together to do this.
Well, it'll be interesting in, typically in July or August when Cal Poly, we do the annual dormitory drill. I'm hoping that they do it at that new complex, because even when we do invite our partners on the regular complexes, it's still enough. So I think having 6 people standing outside looking up at a building might be a good picture.
Have we ever tried a different angle than just the fire response? Because, well, there are a lot of horrible things that happen in the world now, and maybe we need to partner with some of our other emergency services agencies to say that we don't just as a city have enough first responders. Because if there was a mass shooting event in that building, we don't have enough police between the university, Arcata. You guys, would respond to that. There just aren't enough people. And I just think the general public doesn't understand that, because we watch TV where we see these events that happen in big metro areas and think that, oh, there's just all these people that are going to come and help me and aid me, when that's not the case. I mean, we only have 2 ambulances for this part, of the populace. So I think that there's a larger issue outside of just fire that could potentially be an issue there. I mean, that's a confined area. How quickly can people evacuate from that building, I just think that there's a potential there for a lot of things to go catastrophically wrong. Not just fire.
One of the discussions I recently had was what happens if it's drunk college students that get in a simple fight, and we have to deal with that on medical leave.
They can't drink until they're 21. That's cramping.
Ones that are gonna be cooking in their dorms with an open flame.
And I was just thinking about how many cows have been stuffed under dorm doors.
Why is
Today.
that? Why is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Smoke is the thing that I'm most fearful of.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think we've had a good discussion here, and I hope people are listening to it. And maybe Sage will be listening to this. Now that Sage is aware of our concerns. You weren't here earlier, but I thank both you and Marcus for your insight and your comments, because it's very helpful to hear you understand and know better. So thank you. Does anybody else have anything you want to discuss about this? Okay. Moving on to correspondence and communications. Let's see, looks like we have public correspondence. Chief, you want to handle that?
Oh, gosh. Well, obviously I have this one. The other side, yeah, okay. We received the proposed budget from LAFCO. It's, they give this to us every year, essentially, to provide. They work for us and other agencies. They were the ones that led the charge on the annexation of additional parcels and such. So yeah, you'll see the item there. They every year put out the information based on what what their budget is because they're funded by taxpayer dollars. So then you can see the other attached items we've got is a thank you card. This was for Valerie for her award. We had our award ceremony and presented our awards, and she was saying thank you for the plaque. And then we had, I think this is probably better off going to the local because the golf tournament, did you guys see that? Cancer Crusher Golf Tournament? Okay. Anyway, there was a request for sponsorship for a cancer fundraiser golf tournament here locally that we had received. And unfortunately, Nate ran off, Captain Padula ran off, but we have a thank you from a member of the public who had a carbon monoxide issue. And she contacted us via email and wanted to express her gratitude regarding Captain Padula and engineer Alex Sutter for their response and help they provided with the carbon monoxide issue she had at an Airbnb. And then Sheriff Hansel thanked us for our personnel that attended the public safety event at McKinleyville High. And I believe, was it yourself? You were there, right? Yeah. So it was, thanked us for our participation. VLU also participated at that with the setup and helped out quite a bit. So a lot of recognition for and appreciation for our folks at all levels for the things we've done over the last month.
And then we have committee reports. AVFA, Local 4881, and the District Relations Ad Hoc Committee. Director Manus. Nothing to report. Budget Committee. Director Johnson and Director Loudslayer.
We're meeting on Friday.
The Friday. And before we run off, let's just firm up the time of what time we're gonna do it.
Going to do it now or after the meeting?
We'll do that.
And Government Relations Ad Hoc Committee, myself and Director Loudslayer. I think we discussed everything.
Yeah, we reported.
And Fire Chief's monthly report.
Okay, so we had our annual award ceremony recognizing our amazing staff and volunteers that we have. That was a good time. Nice to get everybody up there. Standards have covered, verbal report as recent as this morning. I attended the city department heads meeting on June 4th. They're going to try to start coordinating the workshop. Not having the workshop that day, coordinating everybody. There's gonna be a doodle poll coming out, so keep an eye on your emails about availability so that they can get the workshop moving along. Measure Z, this was great news. I received a phone call from Supervisor Madrone, who advised me that the Board of Supervisors decided to fully fund the Humboldt County Fire Chief's request of, I believe it was just over $2 million this year for Measure Z funds, which we had actually submitted for our organization. Something we've been looking at replacing was our breathing air compressor for years now, because it's been getting along, but we're just running out of time with it. It's on limited time. And we had put in for that. It sounds like we're gonna have the funding to be able to replace that based on Measure Z.
Okay.
We still have to make it work until we get the actual funding, and the county is very slow at providing it, but it's been allocated.
I just wanted to be here to see how you guys get it out of there.
No, you don't.
That's, I don't either.
Just know it's gonna be taken care of.
No spare parts.
So Fire Marshal Ed Laidlaw and I met with City of Arcata Water Department personnel to discuss future projects improvements in various areas of the city. It's going to increase our water flows and pressures in some of these areas. They're going to be looping systems. Some of it's going to be where I mentioned earlier, out in the bottoms down towards the old Bulb Farm area. They're going to be tying in lines out that way. They're having discussions about the Sunnybray area, increasing flows out there, also tying things in the West End area, which will help us in those areas quite a bit. So grants, we've been I'll defer to Chief Peabody on this one. He's been working closely with Rob from BLU as far as, the different grants that, not BLU, ABFA has been applying for, and we've been successful on some of them, and some of them are still pending, correct? I guess some of the key things we're looking at is the thermal imagers. We've been approved.
They've
on
been
those.
approved, yes. And they are being used currently.
And that was through Coast Central. And we have, I mentioned Major Z with the SCBA compressor, Berg Foundation, and those folks just give us a lot of funds. They really help us quite a bit. Training supplies and remodel plans for Mad River Station. They're funding that for us. The SAFER grant has been suspended due to the federal freeze. However, we just heard this week that, rumor has it that it's gonna be unfrozen, and, they don't know exactly when, but they think it's gonna be open for application again. So, that was something that the board had previously approved us to apply for until it had been frozen. So, notable training. Each shift rotated through training at the microgrid solar area at the airport. If you've driven up there and you've seen all that solar array, it's actually pretty interesting to go up there and walk through all of that. And then some of the admin members and BLU members attended a virtual summit on social media strategies for first responders. You attended that, pretty good?
Yeah,
2 days worth, 3 days worth?
3 days worth, talked about your posts on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media stuff to help boost traffic.
Moving into our incidents, we had a overheated fan motor causing smoke in the building at Cal Poly Humboldt Sunset Hall. That's the second one, isn't it? That's 2 in 2 months. Traffic accident Highway 101 with major damage. The second vehicle was found on Fieldbrook Road with damage and abandoned. I don't have any idea why they would flee a vehicle when it was damaged like that. We had a structure fire at the Sunnybrae Shopping Center. This was the restaurant, what was it called, La Trattoria?
La Trattoria.
Yeah.
I just drove by it
Up this hill.
today. It's going to have a different name. but
Yeah, it should be part of the, yeah.
Yes. That's a good name.
The carriage house.
It used to be on the security house.
Yeah, it's owned by the same folks that own Fiesta Grill, and yeah,
That's right.
because their menus have been updated. I saw it on the front the other day. Oh, gosh, let's see. 8217 made a great stop on that. It was a mid-afternoon fire, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Were you on it?
I was on Marcus was. Yeah, it was a stop with Jesus.
Sounds like it was a good, quick stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got
yeah,
on
it
fast.
does. They prevented the fire from entering the structure. Humboldt Bay Fire, Blue Lake Samoa, and Cal Fire also responded on that. Natural gas leak in the area, in Arcata area. 8217 found a gas main that was damaged during construction, and they secured the area until PG&E was able to stop the leak. And another accident at Highway 101 Bayside cut off, which is a pretty common thing now, especially with all the construction. We're seeing quite a bit of that. And I think it's only gonna get worse as that project continues.
better.
Yeah. And then vehicle fire, Central Avenue, Sutter Road. I was actually in Medford at a car show and it popped up on my Facebook feed. I showed it to my son. He's like, hey, that guy, his shop's right next to our shop. So he recognized the vehicle. You can see our call volume. It's City of Arcata is about 46%, with McKinleyville being about 36% last month. Cal Poly is 6% of our call volume last month. One of the things we're doing better, it's not great yet, but we're improving, and that's tracking Cal Poly related calls that are not on campus. Meaning that if it's a student related type of a call, or staff for that matter, if it's someone that's affiliated, associated with Cal Poly, but they're not necessarily on the campus itself. So we're starting to track that so that we can show what the impact is to our capacity from the campus.
Good idea.
So
Yeah, because that's how the state, isn't the Clery Act,
I think it is, yeah.
that's how they staff through the Clery Act, I believe, at the same manner.
Yeah, so it's hit and miss. Obviously, if we have somebody that's unconscious, they're not gonna be able to advise us if they're from Cal Poly or not, but we're trying to improve that data. Obviously, our fires, our medical aids are always our leading numbers, like about 50% last month was our call volume. 26% overlapping calls. Had a couple of mutual aid calls given, and our call volume is 4 minutes. Not call volume, our average response time is 4 minutes, 7 seconds. And you can see what we're on trend for, about 3,800 calls at this point, is what we're looking at, if it were to continue with this path. Apparatus was serviced, and we're getting ready to get the factory service, correct?
No, we've got that.
It did get done, okay. So prepping for fire season's coming up. I know the crews have been working on their pack tests and getting ready for that. As soon as everybody's completed their annual refresher training, they'll get their red cards and we'll be ready to roll. And mobile repeaters were installed. Is there any feedback on those at this point?
Yeah, so far so good.
I had a significant call at, Vista Point over at Plant Beach. Never would be able to get on the radio, and I was very clearly able to talk to everybody I need to talk to, get resources coming. So I absolutely love them. I know that there's gonna be probably some training hiccups with it, incident related, just the way they work as far as kind of units getting to the scene. But I think we're working out a good system on who should be, you know, you have to basically turn your mobile radio on or off the repeater. So we're working on who should be doing that, probably will be first due. But they seem to be working really great. Some programming still issues will need to happen because we do operate on a North Bay command channel and the Humboldt County FireNet. Right now, they just want to default all the time to that Humboldt County FireNet channel. So it's just a programming thing that will be up and running.
Yeah, that's significantly going to improve the safety factor for us.
Yeah, I mean, our safety message, if something were to happen, we say mayday, 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 even on a medically this, but we couldn't get on the radio. So I could say that, you know, so it's really good. It really, and I believe that was through Chief, was that right? Was that through the county Measure C?
Yeah.
So another great Measure C.
It was installed by local,
Silky installed.
Yeah, so it's great work on those guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good.
Okay, and yeah, so that was the big stuff. Community risk, risk reduction. We had Ross, 8219, and Villia assisted with setting up the Public Safety Sunday. That was put on by the Sheriff's Office. It was appreciated. And 8217, who got to do the Easter egg hunt?
That was us on that day. Yeah. For Stewart Park, yes.
Did you wear the
Yeah,
Easter bunny
we
costume?
kind of made it, not really though, yeah, it's hard to,
And then you can see that our social media was up a little bit, and that it was National Public Safety Dispatcher Day was the one of our ideal high hitting posts, as well as some training with B Shift and the flashback and happy administrative professionals. And then we can see what our fire marshal's office was doing. They're doing a lot of inspections. He's wrapping up towards the end of the fiscal year. We try to close things out so that we don't end up duplicating inspection fees. We want to get it all closed out, the inspections, re-inspections done, so that we don't end up hitting it twice with it.
Yeah.
That's what I have for the chief's report.
Thank you, sir. Director matters. We'll start at the far end. I'm good.
I unfortunately was out of town and could not attend the awards ceremony, but I want to congratulate the recipients and the entire organization. Actually, this is a great organization. You have awesome people, and I'm proud to work with all of you.
We only had one near miss.
Flowers. They were together. They were together.
We had a face that tipped over during the presentation in chat.
I've spoken enough.
The award ceremony was great. I was glad to attend. Good seeing everybody dressed up in their finest attire. That's all I have. Next meeting is going to be June 10th, 2025, right here, 5:30 p.m. Does anybody have anything else, or is there a motion? Motion to adjourn.
Second. Third.
You moved the second.
Fourth.